Hello everyone, and thank you for joining us today for today's form building webinar. My name is Nick and I'll be taking us through the builder. Today we'll be talking about autofill and autofilling into paragraphs. If you do have any questions throughout the webinar, please hold on to those. I will be opening that chat up toward the end, and I will be happy to answer those questions or go back over any information if necessary. Another reminder, if you do want to keep up with the schedule of this month's webinar series, you can always just go to my account, the support tab, and then click on that guide, the search guide button. If you come down to FormDr updates down at the bottom right, and right here, that February 2023 webinar schedule, that will let you know what all we will be going over on each specific date for the form building webinars anyway. The onboarding won't change too much, as it will always tend to be generally the same information. But today we are on the autofill. Next week we'll be doing demographics for an intake form, but let's go ahead and jump on in. We won't need to send any forms out or go to our records page for anything today. We'll simply be working off of an existing packet. We can go to our My Forms tab, and then we'll select the form that we want to edit and update. Today we'll be using our FormDr training packet. And to update this, we're just going to click the three dots on the right side of the page and click that Edit Forms button. It's going to take us into step one of our builder. We'll be able to update the tab titles here, remove or add any tabs as well. We won't need to add any other ones today. I already have added a scratch tab, which will just be a blank area for you to fill out a form. And a scratch tab will typically come with a patient name widget by default. I have removed that just to give us a clean area to build on today. But to talk about autofill, basically, whenever you add an element to the page, it will always generate a randomized shortcode. And that shortcode can be found in most elements in this field name area here. For our selection elements, for a single select option, for instance, if we look at that, it's not going to be in the value section. The shortcode for this one, if you did want to auto-populate that selection, can be found here right underneath the title in name. If you're unsure of which one to use, it's always going to be the one that's randomized, as this code will not be used anywhere else in the form whenever it's added. But just to demonstrate, all we'll need to do to use the autofill function is going to be to copy and paste these shortcodes into that same area of a different text field. And so we can replace this one with the one that we just copied from up top. And if we go to our style page, we can then see the style page will always act as a live preview of your form. So we can come to the style page and we can get a test here. We can see that it'll just act as the same element. So whenever one is filled out, the other will be filled out as well. So if you had this set up to be the same, maybe this is a social security number or an address or something like that, you could have this on every page. The first time the patient fills that out, it will fill it out on every single tab. So they'll only have to enter that information one time. We'll go back to the builder here. I'm going to go ahead and add a patient name widget. The patient name widget is going to be the only widget that has set shortcodes. And that's very important to know, as here in the field name area, you'll see first name, middle name, and last name, but they are grayed out and we are unable to change or remove them. That is because the information filled out in the first name and the last name is going to be what is returned to you on the send and receive page as the person who filled out that form. So this will always change. If you send this to patient, if you send the packet to patient A and patient B enters their name here, or maybe a parent or a guardian, then that submission will now be logged under that guardian's name unless it's changed back, because these will all act as one, which we can go ahead and add another patient name widget as not being able to change those. They will all act as the same. And I only bring this up because you don't want to find yourself using a patient name widget on the very last tab of your form, and you're using that for a guardian or a parent or somebody that's different than the patient, because as soon as they put their name in there and submit that form, they won't realize that it's changed all of the other elements on the previous tabs, because they're not going to be going back to look at that information. They'll just submit the form, and then that form will come under their name in the send and receive pages instead. So all other names other than the person whose information you're trying to collect or trying to store that under, as far as the name goes, you should just take those with the general text field. If we go back to our builder, you can also add inputs to the text field if you do want to mirror that styling of the patient name widget. So you could have everything set up exactly the same, except we'll have randomized shortcodes instead, so we won't need to worry about any unwanted auto-population. However, if we did want to auto-populate this information, we could utilize these shortcodes in the other text field as well. Now, one thing to note is that these do not have to be the randomized versions of these shortcodes. You can change these to whatever you want. So, maybe this is an address field or something. We'll go ahead and add another one here. And just to flesh this out a little bit. And so from here, what we could do is just change these. So maybe it's P address for patient address, P city, P state, P zip. And this will just help you remember those shortcodes if you do find yourself adding this field later on in the form, as opposed to having to go click all the way back to that first tab or wherever the question is located and grab each individual randomized shortcode that you're never going to remember and pull that over into those other elements. I always recommend just changing them to something that you can remember. You may need to go back and double check just to ensure they're correct, because they will be case sensitive and everything will need to be exactly the same. However, you can change these to whatever you like. Even P1 or P2, that would work too. Just know that you'll only be able to use those shortcodes one time each, unless you want that information to be auto-filled into the other elements that are using it as well. All right, let's go ahead and finish this out. And I'm just going to make all of them P1 through 4. And then I'm going to change our text field just to make this look a little cleaner. Let's go ahead and add a column here. We'll get rid of one of those patient names and just kind of make this look a little bit more like a form. All right. Maybe this is social security number or something. And so we'll do PSSN. And then we'll do, email address. And then we'll do P email. All right, so now we have our shortcode set to where we need. We can talk about autofilling into a paragraph. And it's very simple. All you'll need to do is add a paragraph widget. And then we're just going to include those specific shortcodes that we want to autofill into a pair of brackets in the paragraph widget. So we could write something out, like say, we'll put a paragraph widget, first name, end bracket, new bracket, last name. And then we'll add an apostrophe S, social security number is, and then we could put in brackets and we would do PSSN, and their email address is P email. All of these going in brackets. They live at, and now here we're going to want to use each field for the address. So we'll do, and just as a reminder, we did use P1 through P4 just to make it a little bit easier. And so we'll go ahead and enter that here, P1, P2, P3, P4. All right, so now we have a sentence with the auto-filled information, and now as soon as this information is filled out by the patient, it will auto-populate into this paragraph. One thing to note, let's add a comma there. One thing to note is that the placeholder information will default to that position before it has been filled out. So we can go ahead and click that to save it up. And now we can see here it says test, but we'll go to next to style page and we can fill all this out. So now you'll get a live preview of the form, and it's just going to say first name, last name's social security number is number sign, and their email address is @symbol. They live at address, city, state, zip. We could do Nick webinar. test@test.com. And then they live at 1234 Street at, San Francisco, California, and then your zip. And so you could get a sentence typed out with that information in there. Typically, you'll see this used just to import the names into that area, maybe an email address or an address, things like that I've seen most typically. But you can get really creative with this, and the more patience and creativity that you have, you can really do some helpful things with this in terms of building out, SOAP notes or office notes based on the way patients have answered. All right. And then we will also talk real quick about the selection option auto population as well. I'll just use a single select option as an example here. These will work a little bit differently. So we'll go ahead and add 2 of them just so I can show you here. And basically what you're going to be doing with the single select options is we'll just do question 1 and then question 2, just give them some titles. But basically what you'll be doing is you're not going to be autofilling the output of that response. So we could even have 2 separate answer selections here. So maybe this is, male, email, or something like that. Minor, do minor adult, since there's only 2 options. And then so you could have the second question being a yes or no, or say whatever you want it to say in that the answer selection text. However, what you will be doing is we'll be autofilling that selection. So we could do this one here, and we could just do a Q1 since we haven't used that yet. And I'm also going to use that same shortcode Q1 for that second one. And now these will both act as a single question. And if they do have different sets of information in the conditional area, so maybe this one has a few extra different questions that would be asked based on that selection, we can go over to the next style page. And now when we click that minor, it will also select the yes for question 2 and present us with that conditional information. So again, you're just auto-filling or you're auto-completing a similar response. And if you did want to output any information from this selection into a paragraph, that's when you will need to update the value. So here we can make this say minor, and then we can make this one say adult. And now this is what's going to be auto-filled into that paragraph widget. So let's go ahead. Is a Q1 and their social security number is all the rest. So we'll go ahead and remove this. We'll move this up a little bit. Actually, let's just make this the second one so it flows in that paragraph. All right. And so here once this has been selected, so we can do Nick webinar. And so now once we have a selection made here, it will input that value, or it will output the value based on that selection. You will need to use the name field with the shortcode. However, once they have selected an option, that value will be presented in the paragraph. Oh, I guess that's a bad example just because it already says state. All right. There we go. And so that's how you'll use auto population into paragraphs. I always harp on it, and I'll harp on it one more time. Just do remember, if you are using the autofill function, auto population for any selection options, you're going to input the name field here into those brackets, and then the output will be the value. For all of the other questions that are just text fields and elements like that, large text field, it will be that field name area by the answer placeholder. All right, and that is how you use the autofill function. I do have that chat open if anybody does have any questions before we wrap up today. But as we wait for those to come in, I do want to thank you all for joining us. And just as a reminder, remind everybody that we do host these form building webinars every Tuesday and Thursday at 11:30 a.m. Pacific time. And again, if you are wanting to keep up with the schedule of what we'll be talking about for the rest of this month, you can get to that guide page by going to My Account, Support, Search Guide, and FormDr Updates. Once you click that 2023 webinar schedule, you'll be able to scroll to the bottom of the page and you'll get an idea of what we'll be going over during each one of those webinars. Again, the next one up will be the adding new form, creating demographics, where we will build out a demographics page for a packet. But please feel free to join us for as many of these as you like. They are free, and if you do have any staff members that you would like to learn this information as well, please feel free to send them our way. We do highly encourage that also. And then we also host onboarding webinars every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Those will be held at 10:30 a.m. Pacific time. And those will be going, or we will go through the account, how to use it, just in general use in terms of updating users, sending forms, updating information within the account, things like that. Those onboarding webinars won't change too much, as most of the information will be generally the same. However, the form building webinars will be changing, so please come check out our schedule here and see if there's anything that you will want to be present for. All right. Well, it doesn't look like we have any questions today, so that will do it for this video on autofill. Please feel free to join us on the next one. Hope to see you again very soon, and thank you again. Have a great afternoon.